Hey, greetings from the Brain Gauge channel. I'm Mark Towerdall, and I want to talk to you about what's hopefully the first of many case studies using the Brain Gauge. We've got a whole bunch in the queue, but we haven't really talked about them yet. But anyway, this first one was submitted by Carrie Vaccarella at Neurocraft, and it's a really, really interesting case. And let's get right to it. So I'm going to share a screen and show you some data. So let's take a look here. So a couple of things. One, we need to talk a little, just for anybody that's not familiar with the Brain Gauge and using the Brain Gauge, I want to remind them what we're looking at. In this case, this is a timeline of Brain Gauge scores that were taken from November of 2022 through October of 2021. So this is almost an entire year of data, and it's a nice record of how this individual is doing. Now, when this individual, this 9-year-old boy, came to Carrie at Neurocraft, he wasn't doing very well, and his parents were in litigation, and his biological parents were not happy with each other. And there was some custody disputes, and he wasn't doing very well. He had a lot of issues in school. He didn't have many friends. He did very poorly, and he has ADHD. So this was his initial score. So what Carrie does, and I think this is really a good, she actually provides a really good model for any clinician who's tracking their patient progress, is that she would give their patients a Brain Gauge test at the very beginning, before they ever started treatment. And then even when they are treated, each time they're treated, she still tests them before their treatment. So one thing that's really good about that is that she's getting the effects of the long-term treatment plan rather than the short term. She's not testing people before and after she treats them. She's testing them on a long-term scale, like at the beginning of their treatment, before their treatment session starts. And so you see that this very first score here doesn't look very low on that chart, 0 to 100 being the best. And this is a plot of the overall score. And just as a reminder, Brain Gauge takes several scores, and these are reported in these different metrics. And you can look on some of the other videos on the Brain Gauge channel if you want to find out more about these individual scores and what they mean. And anyway, just long and the short of it is, here's how he was doing before treatment, and here's how he's doing in the very last treatment. This is the very last treatment. So you can see that, again, red is not a good score. Small numbers are bad. Large numbers are good. Green is good. So he's got a lot of green on his last test, a lot of red and yellow on his first test. But what happened in the interim? Well, right away, he was treated, and he looked like he was doing much, much better. And then all of a sudden, the next time he came in for a treatment, he had missed one of his ADHD medications, and so he didn't do quite as well. And then he had a visitation with his biological mother that lasted a little while, but lasted a few days, but then clearly didn't do very well after that. And that's usually the case. In this situation, each time he had a visitation with his mother, he didn't do very well. So here and here, and then he came here, even though he was visiting his mother, he actually this was the night after a sleepover with his friends. So he's actually at a sleepover with his friends, which, if you've ever been a kid or had kids, you know that there ain't much sleep involved in a 9 or 10-year-old sleepover. So basically, he didn't get a whole lot of sleep. And over here at number 6, this was where he was doing so well that they slowed down the amount of treatment. His treatment regimen was altered, and they don't have to see him quite as often. But here, doing poorly in school. Here, he's doing great in school. And that tells you a lot right there. But, this was very good at capturing the overall long-term trend. And what Carrie was at Neurocraft was treating him with was IASIS microcurrent neurofeedback. If you want to learn more about that, you need to go to the IASIS microcurrent neurofeedback website. But let's get a little more insight into just what's going on in terms of how the brain gauge is doing. And what I'm going to do is go back to the analysis app. The analysis app, again, you see the same overall trend. One thing you don't realize, you can actually look at individual data points. So let's go here. Let's go back to this data point. Okay, this was right after the all-night sleepover where he didn't sleep. Look at the fatigue score. Not doing so hot on fatigue. Well, fatigue is sort of counterintuitive. If you get 100 on fatigue, that means you're not fatigued. But a low score on fatigue means you're actually tired. So that's actually not a bad thing to show. Now let's look at some of the other scores. You don't have to look at just the overall score. Like I said, he had ADHD. So, you click on focus and you see that when he was off his meds, he didn't do so well, and he didn't do so well these times. He gets back on his meds and his focus score actually gets a little better. Speed follows a little bit of the same, not quite as traumatic. Temporal order judgment. Again, you can look at any of the videos on any of these metrics individually and learn a little more about them. It seems to be really susceptible to anxiety and depression. And so when this score is low, it shows, it's when you have high stress levels, the score usually doesn't do too well. Now, just because a score is low does not mean, like if I say stress or anxiety can cause TOJ to go low, it doesn't mean if you got low TOJ that you have stress or anxiety. There are many other reasons. You need to check out the video. But anyway, what I wanted to point out was just some of the flexibility of the Brain Gauge app, and also kudos to Carrie Vaccarella, because she's done a fantastic job with the Brain Gauge, and I look forward to seeing many more case studies with her. So anyway, let's end that there, and hopefully you'll either have a case study or a question that you submit to me, and I will be very happy to answer it, or find someone who knows the answer. So until next time, cheers.